This is Mike and C, and this is another episode of You Can't Handle the Truth. So what are we going to discuss today for the viewers?
So we're going to have a little fun activity today to do. And so what we're going to do is we're going to rank our favorite types or least favorite types of law.
Okay, that's easy.
So areas to practice. So out of all the areas to practice
family law.
So out of all the areas to practice law, what is your least favorite?
Freaking family law.
Well, clearly.
Okay? Yeah,
so why?
That's the worst thing. Well, I mean, where do we start? How much time do we have? I never practiced in family law, but I've had some experiences, and one of them, and we get a lot of calls. Hey, who do I refer? And there are good family law attorneys because I actually I worked for a judge before I was a lawyer, and she was a family law judge, and I saw some really good family law attorneys. So this date, if I get a call, I'll send them to that family law attorney. The problem is he's very expensive. So, but in my experience, you get people at their worst behavior. They're fighting over toys, they're fighting over kids, they're bringing things in, and they're people at the worst. Well, a lot of times, like for instance, criminal, which would be on this list as well, coincidentally, you get people sometimes at their best behavior because they're trying to say, hey, lighten my sentence.
I'm not a criminal.
Yeah, but and we'll share our experience. I mean, there was a family law attorney I worked with in the past that we weren't partners. We just kind of shared space, and he hated his job. And I'm not saying that's the case for all family law attorneys, but I get a lot of that vibe. And it's a job where there's not a lot of job satisfaction. You're taking a fee up front, then you got to go use it, and then do you do volume? Do you do small cases? Do you do big cases? And he would get a lot of volume, and he didn't want to work. I called him in the office sometimes sitting in his underwear, and basically waiting, for his staff to do all of the work. I mean, literally, he did nothing. He had his staff member running around like a chicken with her head cut off, and she finally quit. So, I think that was part of it because that family law, you get people that are very angry, they're very mad, they're very passionate. And so that's something I don't want to be a part of because I don't think I can be as effective a lawyer when I have somebody asking me whether I should save their Legos or not because she doesn't want to give them to her husband or vice versa. So I'm sure I would be more on the side of the females too. I bet you I would be representing more women. And so it's just an area of practice I'm not interested in. How about you?
Well, I heard something really early on and when I became a lawyer, like family law attorneys aged 10 years.
Like tired.
They're like age immediately.
It's more involved.
Yeah, they're immediately like 10 years older than the rest of us because their jobs are really stressful. They're dealing with people who unfortunately use their children as pawns sometimes, which is hard to swallow. I mean, there's a lot of things we see and do that are hard to take home.
Of course.
But certainly not like that where you potentially have toxic people trying to break families and ruin things. And anyway, I can only imagine. It's very dramatic and it would make for very good content.
Oh, absolutely.
On my channels, but I would not want to do it.
Yeah, it's you're doing that and doing that alone.
But in terms of least tax law would be my least.
Why? What tax law?
Because it's really hard to sit there and read the tax code, and it would be just boring as hell.
You're not a numbers person, are you?
No. I went to law school, so I didn't have to deal with numbers. Ironically, I have to work with numbers all the time as a personal injury attorney because you're having to figure out damages and do settlement statements. But you can do that with a calculator. And not only that, the IRS ain't going to come after you if you mess somebody's tax return up or whatever you're doing in terms of tax law, or you're giving the wrong advice that potentially could cost somebody millions. Or something
and it's not to say what we do is not. I mean, they're obviously we're held to a high standard with what we do with our clients as fiduciaries, keeping their money. But the tax laws are the tax laws. I just think tax law sounds very boring to me.
So I got a business law certificate in law school. So I went through a series of certain types of classes that allowed you to get the certificate, right? And then we had to take tax in order to get that business law certificate. Woo!
You took the class?
I took the class, and it was an open book test, which are always the hardest. If you're picking up what I'm putting down.
Yeah.
And essentially, I was just happy that I got out of that. I passed that class. I'm happy that half of the people in that class were not prepared for that test, just as I was not prepared. So, I did better than half the people in the class.
It's a curve.
Yep, it's we're working on the curve.
Certainly it's boring. I mean, I think bankruptcy's up there for me too. I think it's monotony. You're going to these hearings, and I did a couple of those early in my career. Don't want to do that either.
Yeah, it seems very, it's like more procedural, kind of like immigration. Like you're doing forms, you're doing a procedure.
Forms.
It's always the same. It's got its own little set of administration, and you're not really getting to dive in and truly litigate.
Right.
Is essentially kind of the direction of that.
Whereas we do something different, I think, every day.
Yes.
I mean, it's the whole thing where it's like, I don't know what my day's going to bring. I have some things on the calendar, but if a phone call could change our entire day.
Absolutely.
You know, whether it's a new business or just a settlement offer. You know?
That was my favorite thing. So, like, you know, one of the things I absolutely would never want to be is an in-house counsel. And, And here's the thing, though. I went to law school to do that. I went to law school to specifically do that.
To be an in-house counsel?
I wanted to be an in-house counsel.
No offense, I don't think you're an in-house counsel type. I think you're doing what you need to do.
Well, it's really funny because
in-house counsel? Really?
In-house counsel for like a sports team.
Okay,
you know,
maybe I can see that.
You know, like a general counsel for a sports team. That's really what I wanted to do because I went to Florida Coastal to get my sports law certificate.
I can see that if it's sports, yeah.
But I realized very quickly while I was working for a personal injury law firm, putting out fires every day, you know, and then what they did, and I also interned for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Okay. So I saw what in-house counsel or general counsel did on a daily basis versus like what you get to do in the trenches as like a in a civil practice, because essentially it was a personal injury law firm, but I was working in work comp and social security disability. So a little different, right? Okay. But ultimately it was just really, the dynamic and the difference was so huge. Like every single day I was on the phone, putting out fires, dealing with issues, helping people. And in-house counsel, you're basically like, you're just telling people what they can and can't do based on whatever new laws apply. But it's
a lot of consulting.
It seemed very boring.
Yeah, a lot of consulting.
They fed you lunch every day in a nice cafeteria.
Sure, you probably had lunch at the same time every day.
But it was extremely boring. Now I don't eat lunch.
There's something to be said about that, though. It's all about your comfort level. Some people just are better fit for other things. I know people that want to have that, same lunch every day. We'll start work the same time every day, go to home the same time every day.
It probably has to do with the fact that I don't like to be on a schedule or a regimen.
I can't.
So that was not for me.
Don't say. I don't like to be on a schedule regimen either. Unfortunately, the schedule is the only thing that gives me some kind of balance in terms of what I need to do. So it gives me a guide for every day. But as you know, like we said, priorities are priorities. So, but yeah, some of these areas of law don't lead to that. Family law can be very interesting, I think, with the substance. But again, it sounds like a nightmare to have a practice where you do that exclusively or at all.
Was there any area of law that you would rather do than PI? Or that's a bad question.
For me, no.
Let me strike that question.
Yeah.
But ultimately, is there an area of law that you wouldn't mind having learned how to do or doing?
I mean, that's a great question. when I was a kid, I always wanted to be a criminal defense lawyer. And I'll be honest with you, the reason I wasn't is because the city of Clearwater, or where I was going to work, I think it was the Clearwater Public Defender's Office, was offering me like $20,000 a year in 2001. And I went to apply for a job for a personal injury lawyer who offered me double, including percentage of what I brought in. So the decision was pretty easy. And I had a medical background, so it's like, and also it was in Tampa. I didn't have to drive to Clearwater. So that, unfortunately, not unfortunately, I'm glad where my career went, but you get a lot of trial work though when you do criminal law first. You know, that's the trade-off, is that you do get a lot of trials. You get thrown into there.
You learn how to establish yourself in a courtroom and be comfortable and kind of bounce, and there's a lot of definitely, I think, really great skills you learn as an attorney, being a prosecutor or public defender initially, but there's certainly like you're struggling to pay off those student loans.
Right. It's there's a trade-off, and also sometimes you have to sign contracts too, where you work for a couple of years guaranteed. I don't know what they do to you if you leave, but.
Well, one thing I really like about working with you is ultimately you kind of dabble if you feel comfortable with it, you kind of dabble in different things. You don't really necessarily like to, but you'll do it as like favors, or like you take on employment cases as well as personal injury cases. I know you sometimes will draft some wills. I know that's not your favorite thing to do, but you'll dabble in a little bit of things, and I really love that, because where I learned how to practice, it was exclusively and specifically in big, large advertising PI firms. So you're not doing anything in addition to the PI work that you're doing, because you're already overwhelmed with the amount of caseload that you have in PI. You can't step out and do anything different. And then also it's called moonlighting. You're not allowed to really do that because that firm doesn't want you to take anything other than the PI work. And then, and if you are doing it like under your own umbrella, then it could be problematic because technically it's what they call moonlighting.
Oh yeah, what we always try to do is look at the client as an individual, their families as well on the outside. And sometimes we meet the families at the beginning, but yeah, if someone comes up to me and says, hey, this is, you represented me in this injury case, and now I need this, I'm gonna either do the work or make sure it goes to someone that I absolutely know 100% sure is gonna help them. So we try to keep it inside the family. So no, that's a good thing. It's good to know a lot of stuff.
It's good to know a lot of stuff, and that's the biggest thing for me is like, I'd have to, essentially completely learn a different area of the law, which I think people think lawyers can
do everything,
and that's absolutely not true. It's like professions and specialties in medicine, right?
Yeah.
A neurosurgeon is not going to go and operate on a foot, right? You've got podiatrists for that.
Right.
And so it's kind of similar in the area of law in which we have niches, so like areas of specialty and practice. And so since I'm in the civil realm and done PI, that's really all I know. So going outside of that, is difficult because you just don't know how it works. Like taking someone's money as an upfront retainer, I've never done that before because I've always worked on a contingency fee. So it's like, it's very different. People don't understand that there's like a difference in the way areas of practice work.
How much is it going to cost me is a common question.
Yes. But if I were to do anything else, I would probably really like the realm of real estate. Like learn, it's very civil. It's still in the civil realm, so it wouldn't be too different.
Right. Real estate litigation?
Real estate law, litigation, maybe some like construction defect stuff. I think that would be pretty cool.
There's a lot of that
to do. So
stays within the realm of civil litigation too.
Yeah. So any other areas of law that you've ever been interested in getting into?
Interested? I don't know. I think I like what I do.
Well,
I really do. I enjoy doing personal injury, even with all these legislative changes are crying out.
Well,
you're still doing something for the clients, even though some people might think I think you are. But I think helping out the clients is a big deal for me.
Yes,
you really do people out and helping out their families, and so I think having your own practice, I think is a good way to do that too.
Well, because of everything that's kind of you mentioned it. There's all these legislative changes, but a lot of politicians are attorneys.
Yeah.
Or they have their law degrees.
Right.
But either they're lifelong politicians, or maybe they practice and now they're in Congress. On a state level or on a national level. So have you ever been interested in politics at all? Is that something you would ever do?
I could do it. I don't know if I'd get voted in because I'm probably going to take the side of what I think is right. Whereas I'm not saying politicians won't do that, but I mean, let's face it. I mean, you have to be funded to go to these, and if you go up there and say something that's negative for an entire industry, like the insurance industry, for instance, that may be a problem if you get elected. So I would have a hard time with that part of it, to be honest with you. That's probably why I never was interested in it, because I have a problem with one-sided things. I always think there's another side to everything, and there's always an argument you can make. I guess that's kind of more of a middle approach kind of thing. But what about you?
Yeah.
You want to go into politics?
I've gotten a little bit of a underbelly for a passion for it the last couple of months, kind of watching what's going on transpiring.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I don't know if I could sell my soul, and I think that's what you're going to have to do that.
Yeah, that's what you have to do.
I'll stick to being a lawyer and selling my soul that way. Okay. So anyway, if you have any comments, if you like this content, if you want to hear more, like, subscribe, and share, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time.